Welcome back to the show. You're watching Rise and Shine. Good morning to you if you happen to just tune in. And we did tell you that we'll be having a guest towards the latter part of the show, so we've come to that moment. And well, since today is the sporty edition of Rise and Shine, we feature someone related to sports and fitness. So it's time for us to welcome Bilal Yusuf, strength and conditioning coach. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're glad you're here, and today we're going to talk about strength and conditioning. So since we mentioned that you're a strength and conditioning coach, first and foremost, let's explain in a layman's point of view as to what strength and conditioning is.
Okay. So just very simply, it's exactly what it says. Strength is getting someone stronger, and conditioning is just getting someone fitter. And if you have those two attributes, you will be much more durable, can get through your day-to-day life. If you're an adult, if you're a sports person, you can reduce your potential for injury. So it's exactly what it says, getting someone stronger, getting someone fitter.
And Bilal, as you mentioned, because there's so much interest, people talk so much about all of that goes on with, because lots and lots of people spend a lot of time in the gym. But do they do what they really need to do is something that people needs to be taught, isn't it?
Yes, I think there's a lot of confusion in the industry at the moment. What exactly is a good workout? I think if you go and speak to 10 fitness trainers, they will all tell you what's the best exercise or what's the best workout. So I think there's probably not one best way to do it, but one important factor is understanding that to make sure that you choose an exercise program that is relevant to your fitness level. So what might be a good program for one person might be actually counterproductive or not the best option for another person, where it could actually even lead to injury. So it's sort of a dilemma, but I would say probably beginners need coaching. They need good personal training more than programs, because I think unfortunately we're living in an industry where we have a lot of people just handing out programs. So beginners who have never participated in any fitness program, they need coaching of correct techniques compared to programs. Programs is just a piece of paper. It's not going to teach you how to do the exercise correctly.
And what are the benefits of following a strength and conditioning program for the athletes?
Yeah, for an athlete, the number one reason you want to train is to basically participate in your sport. So the number one goal of any good strength and conditioning program is to get someone stronger and fitter, but it is to prevent injury. So if you can keep that person playing the sport throughout, more or less you're going to have a better chance of doing well in your sport. After that, you look at developing the other physical attributes such as speed, power, and endurance, which can help you go on and on. So I think if you have your best player in any team playing throughout the year or playing throughout the season, you're going to win more matches than not. So that's what a lot of these international teams, these pro teams do. The main goal is to prevent injury. We cannot guarantee that you're not going to get injured, but you can reduce the potential for injury.
That's true. And Bilal, something that we've seen quite a lot, as I mentioned, because this going to the gym and following a program of whatever that's been given to you, it's a lot to do with the coaching also. Not a lot of people are actually qualified now. In your case, you're a level 2 strength and conditioning coach that you have got yourself qualified in Australia. So how do people get to know this stuff, and from a reputed person, at least someone who's got the qualifications to teach you? How do you get people motivated that way?
Well, a couple of things I would think is, first of all, look at whether that person is still out in the trenches. Are they still coaching? Are they still training people? Or are they just sitting behind a camera and basically giving fitness advice? Are they putting in the hours? How long have they been doing it? Those are little tools or little sort of where you can get a bit of an idea on probably the reputation of the person. Unfortunately, in this industry, it's probably a good thing and a bad thing. The barrier to entry is pretty low, so really anyone could become a fitness expert. And sometimes just because you may have, the best body in the world and a six-pack, that does not mean you're a great trainer. Because, for example, if you look at a lot of the bodybuilders or say the fitness models, they basically train about twice a day, which is about 14 workouts a week. Where a busy person, which is 99.9% of the population, would probably just have 2 hours or 3 hours of the week to train. So that's where the science and the art of coaching comes into play, and how you can structure your program. So sometimes it's very important, even though you can train yourself very well, whether you have the ability to communicate and coach other people to execute exercises correctly.
And that's something really important. And let's start with the beginners, because how young should you start?
Yeah, so if you're talking about athletes, I would say probably 11 plus is a good age to start. Before that, probably they should just be participating in multiple sports, 3 months of cricket, 3 months of swimming, 3 months of basketball, because that's one thing you want to avoid in athletes is something what we call early specialization. Because early specialization means just focusing purely on one sport, which could lead to multiple injuries in the long run, because you're just training your body to move in one pattern. So when you're at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, you want to be just participating in multiple sports, grooming the body and exposing it to different movements. But once you're 11, you can bring in some structure into the program, and that's where you can focus on developing strength, power, endurance, etc.
And Bilal, how is it like for adults?
Yeah, for adults, basically now, even in my fitness center, what we do is we try to train all our adults like athletes. Because the good thing about any athletic program is you're trying to keep them injury free. Unfortunately, I think there's just far too many injuries happening in the gym, where the exact goal is to keep people fitter and more robust and prevent them from injury. So again, a person who has never participated in any exercise program, they need really, really good coaching. Because like I mentioned earlier, an exercise program or a program written on a piece of paper is just a program. It does not tell you how to do the exercise, it does not tell you what load to lift, and it does not tell you how to do it.
So something that a lot of people needs to be told is that it's not about a piece of paper, it's about going there, doing what you got to do.
Yes.
And when it comes to normal day-to-day life that we go through, it's quite a rat race. People spend a lot of time in front of PCs and all of that. So the only opportunity that they get is now, since a lot of people have started at least to jog or maybe cycle around at least maybe 30-40 minutes. Is this good without having a proper workout?
Well, with regard to jogging, I think that's a bit of a controversial topic. Unless you're really passionate about jogging, I would say it's probably the least effective way to improve your fitness, lose fat. Because, that's something I do in some of my corporate talks as well. I get the audience to just stand up and say, okay, can you give me 5 hops in one place? And then they do that, and then I say, okay, can you give me 10,000? And then they all just look at each other, what are you doing? And that's exactly what a jog is. Basically, if you're jogging, it's a hop. And if you're overweight, that's like 10,000 impacts, which the stress on the joints and the potential for injury is very high. And when you're adults, you want to probably, condition off your feet. Things like stationary bikes, striders are probably more effective and safer tools than running, because athletes need running. But once you're an adult and you've not run for a few years and you put on a few kilograms, probably it's a good recipe to get injured. So I would say avoid jogging much as possible.
And that's something that I'd like to share as well, because I think this is something for a lot of people to keep in mind, because they think that since there's so many parks now opening up, walkways and jogging tracks and all of that that's coming around the city, a lot of people think that it's a good way to go out there and lose a few pounds of weight, but it's not the case, because if you're overweight, it could actually have its impacts on your ankles and knees, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And while cardiovascular fitness is one component to lose weight and improve fitness, it probably comes way down the line on what you need to prioritize. So if you're talking purely fat loss, you cannot outtrain a bad diet. Nutrition is the number one component, and you got to be on a calorie deficit.
So it all counts on what's there in the kitchen.
Exactly. And what you put in your mouth.
Exactly.
So basically, you want to just basically, in layman terms, you want to basically burn more calories than you take in, and that's how you're going to lose fat. So you can't outtrain a bad diet. Number 2 is you want to put on strength and maintain lean muscle mass. So once we pass the age of 40 years, you lose 4% of muscle mass every year, and that is one main reason why metabolism slows down in adults. And the best way to maintain it, or probably reverse that process a bit, is following a structured strength program where you can maintain muscle mass and keep the metabolism cranking and continue to burn more calories. So just say if you've got 30 minutes twice a week and you could just have the option of choosing strength training or cardiovascular training, I would say strength training is a better bet. If you've got 45 minutes, you can add probably 15 minutes of cardiovascular fitness, such as doing some high intensity interval training on a bike or on a strider.
Right, interesting. So now as you did mention, Ishan, we see a lot of people hitting the gym, and then getting into CrossFit and all that. So tell us a little bit about the difference between what happens at the gym according to bodybuilders
Yes.
and what happens at strength training.
Yeah, so I mean, it's probably it all comes in the same category. But what you want to do is you want to follow a program which is functionally based. So what functional training means is basically the efficient movement of the body. So simple patterns like squatting. For example, if you look at a baby when they were a kid, they could just the first time they stand up is technically what they're doing a squat. They can pick a pencil off the floor with perfect motion. But as you age and we live in a sitting world and we are sitting on our bums, we basically cannot do that. So sometimes you got to reboot the system, train yourself to basically squat, how to sit properly. With regard to CrossFit, it has, in my view, that's just a personal opinion, has its pros as well as its cons. From building community, building endurance, building mental toughness is awesome. But the problem with group classes, the one issue is it's a one-size-fits-all approach. So you may have 30 people in the room doing the same program, where 5 people could probably do that program correctly, where 25 people, it's probably far beyond their level. And when you do an exercise that is too hard for you or you're not capable of doing, it could result in injury.
That's something that we have seen quite often here. So I'm going to deviate a little, Bilal, because I think a lot of Sri Lankans are interested in knowing what's wrong with our cricket. And what's wrong with our cricket is that cricket team is not having the proper 11 to play with, because every other day you see someone falling apart. And over the last 3 weeks, we have seen Angelo Matthews, Kusal Janit, and now we have heard of Lahir Kumara's done with a hamstring injury. We have just heard Dushmantha Chamira is probably going to be out as well. We have seen Nuwan Pradeep moving out with injuries. So that's 5 of the top 11 that we could have had that's bowing out of the team. And it's been the case every other month, more or less, with Sri Lanka. We have lost Dhamika Prasad through injury. So many over the last couple of years or so. What's going on there?
Yes, I mean, without me actually being inside the system, it might be a bit hard for me to comment, but just looking at it from an outsider's perspective, in international sports, everyone is going to get injured. But when you're having such a high percentage of injuries, it could be several factors. One factor could be is you've got to look at probably the training program. Are the players being overtrained? Are they following a structured strength and conditioning program? The other thing is, are they carrying on a little bit of extra weight? It could be several factors. And if you're having so many injuries almost every month, there is definitely an issue with the overall training program. Like they say, strength and conditioning coaches or physiotherapists, they cannot prevent injuries. Only God can prevent injuries. But what they could do is reduce potential for injuries. So when you're having such a high injury rate, it could be one of those many factors that could be causing injury. But one thing, when you look at the national cricket team, and I think we had even the sports minister commenting about it a few months ago, I think when you just look at our athletes, our cricketers, they do not look athletic anymore. And cricket has changed dramatically in the last 10-15 years. Where without proper athleticism, you're not going to survive. Because if you look at the amount of cricket being played 15 years compared to 15 years ago, probably it's 70 to 80% more. So that's where I said you need that durability, and that's where a good structured strength and conditioning program comes into play. If you're talking cricket, maybe, and this is probably how you would do it. For example, just let's talk about some batsman. A batsman who scores 100, and at the end of the day, he's quite fatigued. He would just need to get into the pool and probably get some recovery. But say maybe for a batsman who just got out for a duck, he's not got enough fitness on his belt for the rest of the day. He may be just having his feet up on the dressing room. He probably needs to at lunchtime get into the gym, get that cardiovascular fitness going, maintain those strength levels. So I'm not sure whether that is happening, but there is probably a big question mark if there are so many injuries. And like I just mentioned earlier in the program, if you're having your best players playing, most of the time you're going to win most of the matches. And I think that is something they really need to look forward to. And I also have my question marks whether there's a cultural issue. Because when you're seeing players with such large bellies playing in an international cricket team, whether what they put into their mouth is being monitored. And that's probably the only thing an athlete has 100% control of, is what you say is their body fat percentage. And that can be totally controlled by controlling your diet. So whether the culture within the squad on maintaining proper nutrition and basically saying, okay, you may be the best player in the team, but if you're not watching your diet and you're going to have excess body fat percentage, you're not going to make it. Whether Sri Lankan cricket is moving to that culture is probably needs to be strongly looked at, because I really don't think in probably teams like Australia, New Zealand, India, it would be tolerated.
That's true, Bilal. I think, sorry, because I think New Zealand is one of the fittest in terms of cricket playing nations now, and India is not far behind. Because I think, I don't think Sri Lanka could actually do a 14 on yo-yo training, even though New Zealand and India talks about 18.1s, 18.3s, and all of that.
Yeah.
It's that they are pushing their limits, even for Englishmen. They are pushing their limits to a certain extent, whereas Sri Lanka is really struggling. Because I remember a couple of months ago, Angelo did not even do the yo-yo test because they were fearing injury, and it was only a few weeks that he played cricket in New Zealand and he was injured. And it's just that we are lacking somewhere down the line. As you probably said, probably it's a lot to do with the structured setup where everyone's following the same program without really personalizing it depending on the player's ability and fitness level, I guess.
Yeah, it would not be fair for me to comment exactly what's going on, because there could be various challenges the trainers, the coaches and all face, the amount of time they have with the players and things like that. But one huge concern is probably the players managing what you say is their skin folds or their body fat percentage. And like I spoke about, if you're carrying that excess weight and you're running between the wickets, you're out just standing all day, the stress the joints takes, the muscles takes throughout the day, there's going to be plenty of wear and tear. And even if you talked about the yo-yo, there's a direct correlation between the yo-yo test and your body fat percentage. So a thinner person, it is easier for them to turn compared to a person with a bit of extra, fat around their belly. So all those factors have a huge bearing on the ultimate performance. And probably in any sport, the number one factor that probably reduces an athlete performing to their potential is body fat. And I would just even like to give an example. Probably if you just take the example even of a pregnant mother. When she's 6 months, she's carrying that weight and walking around. We know how difficult it is and how much energy it takes. But once she gives birth, again, she's light, she's more agile, and she can move. It's the same example for sports. If you're carrying that excess weight, your running between the wickets is going to be hampered, your fatigue levels are going to increase, and it's going to have your performance is going to take a hit eventually. So
exactly, because as you did mention, I think it applies to every individual. It's not just our cricketers, but I think anybody involved in any sort of sports.
Correct.
And even for day-to-day activities, I think it's important to be healthy and be able to carry your body, because we
Exactly.
see a lot of people finding it very hard to even get up when they're seated downstairs, down rather. So speaking of this interesting word when it comes to fitness, core strength. Now we've got like a couple of minutes to go on the show, like less than that I guess. So we'll quickly speak about what core strength is and why we speak about that a lot, and what it can do.
Yeah, so I think if you just Google core strength, probably you'll get 1,000 definitions. But my explanation would be it's basically the connection between the upper and lower body and how you transfer power from the lower body. A lot of people think you build core strength by doing things like crunches and stuff, but crunches is probably the least effective way of developing core strength. You want to, and the core, or let's say the lower back, is built in a way where you want to prevent rotation of the spine. You want to prevent the spine rounding when you're doing exercises, and you want to prevent curvature of the spine. And that's exactly what crunches do. So since we have a little bit of time, basically to sum up, all exercises needs to prevent those movements than actually encouraging those movements. And just to give a bit of advice to our viewers quickly, probably crunches is the least effective way of improving your core strength.
All right, so we got to thank Bilal for being with us and sharing his expertise with regards to what strength and conditioning is all about. I think what's more important is for people to know what they can do, and as you said, probably go to a reputed person, someone who's qualified like Bilal, probably to get the information. He runs his own thing, Athlete Unleashed, that is called. So if you want to Google up on Bilal and probably get in touch with him with regards to what you want to do. 2019 is probably a resolution for you to have. Probably a lot of people would have started saying that I want to be fitter than what I was in 2018. So that's probably a way of getting things done. That's a little bit of what we would share. And it's time for us to say bye-bye on today's edition of Rise and Shine. Whilst thank you Bilal for being with us, it's time for us to say bye-bye on Sunday's edition of Rise and Shine. See you same time, same place tomorrow as well. It's bye-bye from us.